So I made my predictions yesterday, uploaded the video, but apparently the audio got cut out when I uploaded it. So I'm gonna go through this once again, going through the entire card. I'm gonna do it much quicker. Um, it's just that card. We finally have a really good card to watch tomorrow night. A lot of big fights, a lot of good contenders coming out. So, without further ado, let's start off with Nora Kanoe versus Haley Kawan. This one is pretty straight simple. Nora Kanoe, 8-2, coming off of a split decision loss to Jacqueline Calvacanti. Before that, she knocked out Melissa Mullins and was on a 4-fight win streak with wins over Jocelyn Edwards, a first round knockout over Hassana Gabber and Sana Madar. You go over to Haley Kawan. She hasn't fought since 2022 on the Dana White Contender Series. She has had a lot of fights be canceled, and her only fight since the Contender Series was a loss against Jamie Lynn Horth. I'm going to go North Carolina by a second round knockout. I think it's just due to her being active and she just has more skill all around. I think that her striking is vastly superior. Her grappling, I feel confident in. And I just see her getting it done pretty easily in the second round, probably with a head kick. Moving on. Well, before I say this, though, the 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 chances that I see, um, I already forgot her name, Haley Kawan winning this fight. I'm not gonna act like I know a lot about both of these fighters. I just, again, when you're not active and you're a young fighter and you really haven't proved anything in the UFC, uh, I don't see how she can come out against Nora Kanoe, who looks like a really good fighter. She did miss weight today, weighing in, but I still think she'll get it done by the second round knockout. Well, I mean, if she weighed over the limit, most likely she'll weigh more than Haley Kawan tomorrow. Moving on to Trishan Gore versus Marco Tulio. Marco Tulio survived a robbery on his way to this event. When we look at Trishan Gore, he's coming off of a first round guillotine over Antonio Tricoli. Really good win. He submitted Josh Friend, but he got knocked out by Cody Brandage and lost to Cody or Brian Battle by decision, sorry. He worked at Marco Trujillo, though, knocked out Igor Poteria in his first fight. A really good win. I highly rate that win against Igor Poteria. Igor Poteria has been in there with a lot of the up and coming guys that are truly, you know, have skill and could be something in this division. Then he got a second round TKO with a spinning back first over to Matteo de Close on the Contender Series. Got a second round TKO in LFA against Tammy Dos Santos and beat Yorsi Wagari, however you say that, on the Contender Series as well. I'm gonna go with Marco Tulio with a first round TKO. He's on a tear coming into the UFC, and he knocked out Igor Poteria in his debut. I highly rate that. Um, to do that in round one against a guy like Igor Poteria, it's a really good win. It's a really good win. But I think he gets it done, and I think that Marco Tui is a guy to watch on the come up and could really be a mainstay in this division moving forward. Now we move over to Sumaderji versus Mitch Raposo. This is an interesting fight because when you look at Sumaderji, he's 3-3 in the UFC. Lost to Charles Jourdain by unanimous decision in his last fight. Got submitted by Tim Elliott and Matt Snell. We're supposed to fight Josh Van. and Alan Nascimento, but those fights got canceled. But you look at what he did over in the WLF. The guy is a insane kickboxer. He has um I think it's like 13 KOs. He was on a 4 fight TKO streak. Um More so in the first round when he came over to the UFC. But it's just a matter of him showing that he's capable of doing this in the UFC at the highest level. You look at Mr. Pozo though, lost his last fight to Andre Lehman in a very, very close fight. Before that, he was on a 3 fight win streak, all by TKO. Ultimately, though, I think Suma Derja gets it done by decision. He's been in there with tough opponents recently, which, we've seen him lose. But I feel like that also has helped him a bit and will help him in this fight. Mr. Poso, no disrespect to him, I feel as a step down in competition to his previous opponents. And I think Simadeja's career is on the line. If he doesn't win this one, I think he's out of the UFC. I see him getting it done by decision though. I think he'll just stay outside, outland Raposo, and hopefully he gets it done. I really would like to see Sumadev Japan on the UFC. I think he is really talented. The fights that I watched of his outside of the UFC, I was really impressed. And I think overall he has more skill than Raposo. Moving on to our next fight between Cedric Dumas versus Mikhail Oleksiak. You look at Cedric Dumas, he won his last fight against Dennis Twinen. He got knocked out by Ruzaboev before that at, I forgot which fight night that was. Before that, though, he beat Abu Azatar and Cody Brundage by unanimous decision. You look at Oleksiak, though, had a really tough 5 last fights, I think. Uh, Lost to Shara by unanimous decision in his last fight. Got submitted by Kevin Holland and Michelle Pereira in the first round. Knocked out Chidi Njokumani in the first round before that. And got submitted by Caleb Bravo. All of these losses, though, are against top level guys in this division, apart from Pereira, I believe. But I think he can get it done. I think he'll win this, and I think he gets it done by third round TKO. He's coming up with 3 brutal losses to what I believe are top 15 contenders in the division. And he looks like an elite fighter against most fighters when he's fighting a guy, closest to over, or, a prospect that isn't looking like an animal. Alexia is a really good fighter, and I believe he'll probably get it done. I could see him getting into an exchange, landing probably a combination, then throwing it up on the ground. But I see him winning this. I'm pretty confident he rebounds from this losing streak. Moving on to Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. This is a pretty interesting fight. I gotta be honest. Darren Elkins is riding a 2-fight win streak against Daniel Pineda and TJ Brown. He did get a bonus for the Daniel Pineda fight, but before that, lost to Jonathan Pierce, beat Tristan Canoe, got KO'd by Cub Swanson in 2021. But overall, has been a veteran in the UFC, has been in there, and is a really good fighter. Now, you go over to Julian Erosa, who is on a really good streak right now. He beat Christian Rodriguez by guillotine, in his last fight in the first round. Also submitted Ricardo Ramos with a guillotine in the first round. Got knocked out by Fernando Padilla and Alex Caracas. But before that was on a 3 quick win streak. And he's looked really good recently. Julian Rosa, another veteran, but I think he's shown some recently, and I think he gets it done by TKO in the first round. He's coming off of two first round. Um, wait, did I have that wrong? I don't know why I said he's coming off of first. He's coming off of two first round submissions. That's what I'm supposed to say. Very explosive, and I kind of think this fight will last 1 round. Either Darren Elkin wins or he does. I just think Julian Rosa lately has looked really good and has really impressed me recently. Moving on to Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper fighting another legend after beating Clay Guida in his last fight. You look at Jim Miller though, he submitted Damon Jackson in the first round at UFC 309. A really good win. Lost to Bobby Green by unanimous decision on UFC 300. We know that they threw him on there just so that they can, you know, yeah, Jim Miller at UFC 100, 200, and 300. Before that, though, he submitted Gabriel Benitez with a face crank in the third round, and Jesse Butler he knocked out in the first round. You move over to Chase Super, like I said, he submitted Clay Guida in his last fight, submitted Borshev in the fight before that. A really good win, lost to Aljamain Sterling in a grappling competition, but split decision. Before that, though, he submitted Jordan Levitt, beat Nick Ford by decision, and he's a really good up and comer. Really young, I believe he's under 25 or 25, around there. I ultimately think he gets it done. I don't think he gets a finish. I think he'll get it done by decision. And as to with his youth, like I said, 25 years old, he's a really high level grappler, has shown a lot in his MMA career and in grappling competition. But I don't see him finishing Jim Miller. I don't see Jim Miller getting submitted. I don't see him being knocked out. I feel like this goes to a decision, and Hooper probably wins a comfortable 30-27. Miller will probably have his moments here and there, but for the most part, I think Chase Hooper will win. And I hope they take the time with Chase Hooper. I think that Chase Hooper is a fun fighter. He can finish pickle. He's a really good grappler, like I said. I just hope they take their time with him. But we move on to the next fight of Verna Jandaroba versus Yan Jionan. I can never say her name. This is another interesting one. We have the third ranked contender taking on the number one contender, who is just in there with the champion. But you look at Verna Jandaroba recently, ever since losing to Amanda Reed, Boston 2021, at UFC 267, she has looked phenomenal on a 4 fight win streak. Beat Angela Hill, beat Marina Rodriguez, and now has two wins against Lupita Godinez and Amanda Ramos. I rate those wins very highly. Um, Moving over to Yano. She beat Tabasco Ritchie in her last fight, lost to Zhang Wei at UFC 300. Before that, she KO'd Jessica Andrade in the first round. Really good Jessica, really good win. Jessica Andrade is a really scary fighter. Beat Mackenzie Dern by majority decision. Lost to Moreno Rodriguez by split decision. And got TKO by Carla Esparza. Beat Claudia Gadala, another really good win. Ultimately, though, I think Verna Jandaroba wins this by decision. She's coming off a really good submission win over Amanda Ramos. Like I said, I rate that one very highly. Amanda Ramos is a very talented fighter, and she has looked really dominant since losing to Amanda Ribas in 2021. And I think that Verna Jandarova, she does present some interesting threats to Zhang Weili if Zhang Weili will defend her belt again. But we know that she potentially could be facing Valentina Shevchenko in her next fight, going for a second title. Dana White said that he's interested in it. But I think Rona Jandiroba wins this fight, becomes the number one contender. If she doesn't fight Zhang Weili, she'll probably fight whoever it is for an interim belt or a vacant belt. And I can see her becoming a champion in this division from this win streak she is on right now. Then we get over to Danny Ige versus Sean Woodson. A very interesting fight. Danny Ige, a fan figure fighter. Sean Woodson, a really weak featherweight, a really good striker. But when I look at this, Danny Ige, he's only 2 fight losing streak. He lost to Laurel Murphy at UFC 308. He looked good in that fight. Laurel Murphy just fought Josh Emmett in a really probably the worst event of all time. I don't even want to think about it. Um, lost to Diego Lopez at UFC 303, but again, that was a really good fight. He really did look good in that fight. He KO'd Andre Fili, a really good win in the first round with a check right hook, followed up by the ground and pound. Lost to Bryce Mitchell by decision. Beat Nate Landwehr. I rate that one highly. Knocked out Damon Jackson. And he lost to Mobster Live and Josh Emmett. So when you look at, Danny Gay, he's only losing to the top of featherweight. And he's, you know, losing in decisions. He's making it competitive. Even though they were all unanimous, they were really good fights and they weren't close. Then you move over to Sean Woodson. He's 13-1-1, coming off of a first round KO over Fernando Padilla at uh I believe that was Buckley versus Covington in Tampa Bay. Beat Alex's characters Charles Jourdain, he beat by split decision, and Denise Verzatchka, he beat by unanimous decision. Ultimately, though, I think Sean Woodson wins this by decision. I think it will be a really close fight, though. I feel the difference will be if he can keep Danny Ige at range most of the fight. I feel like he'll outland Danny Ige and probably win off of, you know, damage and overall just controlling the fight. I feel if Danny Gay is going to win this, Danny Gay will make it a really ugly fight with Sean Woodson. But you also have to factor in he's 6'2" for this division, right? Sean Woodson is a very big guy for featherweight. And ultimately, I see him winning this. And then you have Sean Woodson moving up into the top 15. And I feel like there's a lot of interesting fights for him. I just the one thing that I question is how will he do against a high level grappler in the featherweight division if he makes it up there. But ultimately, though, I see him getting it done by decision. Then we move on to a very interesting fight. Um, Nikita Krylov, who is ranked, isn't he ranked number 8 or number 9 versus Dominic Reyes? Nikita Krylov is on a 3 fight win streak. Before that, he got beat by Magomed Ankalaev, who is now the champion, and he got submitted by Paul Craig, who beat Ankalaev by a last-second submission. He TKO Gustafsson, beat Uzdemir, beat Ryan Span, but again, those three names I don't really see those guys as being top light heavyweights anymore. Gustafsson used to be one of the best light heavyweights. Uzdemir was out there for a little bit. Ryan Spann is down the heavyweight division. And it looks much better at the heavyweight division. You move over to Dominic Reyes. We know this story. Fought John Jones in February 2020. Arguably beat John Jones. Many people believe that he won that fight. He did back up John Jones a lot. That's one of the best performances, if not the best performance against John Jones. Then he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz for the vacant belt. Jan Blachowicz went on to be the champion, defend the belt against Israel Adesanya, then dropped it to Glover Teixeira. Then he got knocked out by Yuri Prochazka with a spinning elbow in round two. That was a brutal knockout, but again, Yuri Prochazka won the belt, has been a top contender in the light heavyweight division for I don't even know how long anymore. He faced Alex Pereira twice, getting knocked out. Potentially will face Magomed Ankalaev if Pereira doesn't win the rematch. But then he beat Dustin Jacoby and Anthony Smith, both by TKO. Dustin Jacoby in the first round, Anthony Smith in the second. They're not, they're not really the big wins that you look at and you're like, oh my god, he beat Anthony Smith. Well, we know what we get with Anthony Smith. I love him, but I mean, we know what we've gotten recently. But it'll be interesting to see if he can come back against Nikita Krylov, who isn't a big power puncher and win. Well, ultimately, I think he does win. He's on a 2 win streak. Krylov isn't a hard puncher, which is one of the reasons I can see him comfortably winning. And I believe that Dominic Reyes can still be a top light heavyweight in this division. I don't know if he wins the belt against say Magomed Ankalaev or a Yuri Prochazka, but I do believe he can have some entertaining fights, potentially get some of those wins back, and maybe have a trilogy or two in the division. But I'm pretty confident that Dominic Reyes will get it done against Nikita Krylov. Nikita Krylov hasn't really been active lately, only fought once last year. And I kind of think the resurgence is a good thing. I like seeing Don Reyes get back up there, and who knows, maybe we see him going on a late run, and get the title that he nearly grabbed from John Jones. Moving on to the People's main event of John Silva versus Bryce Mitchell. We all know the animosity. We know Bryce Mitchell battling demons. Sean John Silva is, demon possessed. Probably had the funniest performance at a uh, press conference we've ever seen. But this is a much closer fight than people realize, man. It is much closer. You look at John Silva, right? He goes on a tear right now. Came in against Kevin Bahamas on the contender series, beat him by unanimous decision. Ever since then, knocked out Wilson in the first round. Knocked out Charles Jourdain in the second round. Again, Charles Jourdain is a really good fighter. Beat Jim Dober by TKO due to Dr. Salvage and TKO Bogdasarian in his last fight. Again, really good wins. Then you move over to Bryce Mitchell, coming off way TKO over Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie can't fight. I'm sorry. He got knocked out by Josh Emmett, infamous way, with a brutal overhand right. But again, Josh Emmett is one of the hardest hitting featherweights we've ever seen. He beat Danny Gay by unanimous decision. Got submitted by Ilya Topuria in the second round in 2022. And beat Edson Barboza. Mike Smithko is a really good fighter. And not a lot of people want to admit that right now because of what he said on his podcast. But Mitchell is a high level grappler, and I honestly think, in my eyes, this fight is a coin flip. I can see John Silva winning. I can see Bryce Mitchell winning. Ultimately, I went with John Silva. I think it's a really tough fight for him. The pressure on Bryce Mitchell that he has put on himself, I do question. He worked much better in media day. You guys know, I thought he had a fucking field day with the media day, and I thought the people asking those questions were total pussies. And I believe a knockout against Bryce Mitchell would propel him around the top five of this division, and we can see a lot of fights, fun fights with him and Lopez, him and Mobstar Alvarado. But I feel like John Silva will be a problem in this division for basically anyone he fights. But all eyes are on this fight, and I want to see Bryce Mitchell profit. I think it'll be cool to see with everything going on for him to get out there, get that win, you know. I'm not gonna get into the whole situation, right? I get what he was going for. I really do. I understand what he was going for when he was talking about all that stuff. But again, when 2025, man, the internet is a much different place. And yeah, I think that John Silva, part of the fighting nerds, will be a top guy, a big name for the UFC moving forward. Then we move on to Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. Patricio Pitbull making his UFC debut. We know Yair Rodriguez has been in there with basically every top guy at featherweight. So we're going to start off with him. He got submitted by Brian Ortega in the third round in his last fight. Got TKO by Volkanovski in his shot at the belt. He submitted Josh Emmett to win the interim title around the time when Volkanovski went up to fight Islam the first time. He did beat Brian Ortega, but, but didn't really tell Brian Ortega had a shoulder injury. And then he lost to Max Holloway before that in November of 2021. Patricio Pitbull, the man that we've wanted to see in the UFC for years now. It really sucks that we didn't get Pitbull in his prime, but the main reason we have him here now is the thanks to the PFL being dog shit and Don Davis. So thank you, Don Davis, for giving us at least one or two fights of Patricio Pitbull in the UFC. His last fight was March of last year where he TKO'd Jimmy Kennedy to defend his belt. Before that, he got knocked out by uh, Shiro Suzuki outright supervising two. Lost to Sergio Pettis by unanimous decision at Bellator 297. Before that was on a 3-fight win streak against Clever uh, Koik by unanimous decision. Adam Borax, and he demolished AJ McKee after AJ McKee submitted him in the first round with the guillotine. So, really dominant performance that he had against AJ McKee. He rocked him throughout the fight, and it was brutal. AJ McKee, too, if you guys don't know, his dad was a fighter as well. AJ McKee is another guy where I would love to see in the UFC. Ultimately, though, I'm gonna go with Yair Rodriguez. I would love to see Pitbull win. I think Pitbull winning would be big for the UFC. But the age, the activity, and he's been in there with the best 145ers that the UFC has to offer. Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Josh Emmett, all these big names he's been in there with. Then you have people under it. Um, yeah, people hasn't fought since March due to PFL being a shit organization that can't keep fighters at Tampa events. and will be folding within the next year or two. So I'm going to go with Yair Rodriguez. I think he'll be close. Again, the activity though, and being in there, being used to being in the UFC against the tough competition. We'll have to see how Pitbull does. We also have Aaron Pico coming in as well. Aaron Pico, that is a big name to add into the UFC. I believe he is fighting Evolov. That's what I heard. But yeah, anyways, moving on to the co-main event of Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. This is a really interesting fight. Now, you look at this one, Michael Chandler coming off of his second loss to Charles Oliveira after waiting 2 years for the Conor fight, went to the Ultimate Fighter, was supposed to happen at International Fight Week last year, was supposed to happen at Madison Square Garden 2023, was supposed to happen at International Fight Week in 2023. But it didn't happen. Before that, he was submitted by Dustin Poirier, front kicked Tony Ferguson in the second round, lost to Gaethje, lost to Oliveira when he fought for the belt. Nearly knocked out Charles Oliveira in that first round, though. Then you go over to Paddy Pimblett, who is on a nah, I wouldn't call it a tear. He was on a really good win streak right now, coming off of wins against Bobby Green with a first round triangle choke, beat Tony Ferguson again. Everybody has. Jared Gooden, Jordan Levitt, he submitted. Rodrigo Vargas, he submitted. And he knocked out Luigi Vandramini in 2021. I'm going to go Patty Quinn Webb by decision. I think activity I will be a big thing. I know that Michael Chandler fought in November. I believe that Paddy Pimblett is a better grappler, and I think he fights a lot smarter. I think that Michael Chandler could be a champion in the UFC. It's just, his fan friendly style, it cost him. It really does cost him in the cage. And I do believe that if we saw a more technical Michael Chandler, he could have probably beaten Oliveira. I think that I don't think there's any way he would have beaten Islam, but I just think that Paddy Pimblett, the game plan for him will be very simple. Rely on the grappling. I do believe, yeah, he's taller than Michael Chandler. I just think he'll outwork Michael Chandler. I could see Michael Chandler outlanding him, but I just feel the bigger parts in this fight will go to Paddy Pimblett. Then we move on to the main event between Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Alexander Volkanovski making his return after his loss against Ilya Topuria. That was following a knockout loss to Makachev. So when we look at this fight, Diego Lopez on a 5-fight win streak. His last loss was to Mafsar Evloev, but ever since that, he submitted Gavin Tucker in the first round. Submit TKO Pat Sabatini, a really good one. TKO Sodiq Youssef. Had the fight with Danny Gay at UFC 303 that we mentioned. Really good fight. And then he beat Brian Ortega in his last fight. Then we get over to Alexander Volkanovski. Coming off of the two knockout loss. The one in the second round against Ilya Topuria with the right hook. The one in the first round with the head kick against Makachev. He knocked out Yair Rodriguez before that. Lost saves from Makachev in a really close fight the first time. And then he beat Max Holloway for the third time. Beat Korean Zombie. When I look at this fight, obviously a lot of people are gonna look at the fact he's been knocked out twice in a row and go off that. But it's been over a year, and when I look at this fight, man, I think that Volkanovski is better all around. I think that he is a better boxer. I still think Diego Lopez has things to learn in the stand up game. And he's taking a longer break too. I feel like him having the time off to recover from the knockout loss will work in his favor. And then, Diego Lopez, I don't think he will last if Volkanovski gets top, man. Volkanovski has some of the most vicious ground and pound we have ever seen. And that's kind of how I think the fight will go, I feel like Diego will win one of the first two rounds. I think we'll see a feeling out process the first two rounds. But I ultimately think if Diego Lopez gets in Volkanovski's guard, he's going to get knocked out, and I think that Volkanovski will get his belt back. He said that he wants to fight one more time after this, and then if you can retire with the belt now that Topuria left the division, you gotta think, man, Volkanovski is a top 10 fighter of all time. I feel like nobody is gonna debate me on there. It just depends on who you have up there. Had a really good close fight with Makachev, and has only lost to, the number one and two pound for pound guys in the UFC right now. When John Jones isn't around, but I think he gets it done. I think he'll get it done by 4-7 TKO, getting on top of Diego Sanchez. I feel like his guard will be too much for him, and I'm going to take him, win back the belt, get back on top. I really hope he doesn't get knocked out though. If Volkanovski gets knocked out, I will be severely depressed. But that is once again my prediction for tomorrow. Once again, I do apologize for the audio not working initially on this video. I don't know, man. I've been trying to figure out what it is. Like, it's just my little soundboard here. It decides to do whatever it wants from time to time. Like I will have it set on the right settings, and then it's just randomly when I turn it on, it will put it on something else, or just cut out entirely. But thanks again for watching. Let me know in the comments down below. Who are you picking tomorrow night? And yeah, later.